Alright, you're looking to buy a motorcycle. You're going to be met with the age-old dilemma: do you go for a used bike or a new bike? Then of course, within the camp of used, there are even more factors to consider, like do you want to buy it from some guy down the street or from a dealership? There's a whole lot to unpack here, and the right decision is one you will ultimately have to make on your own, as everyone's financial situation and tolerance for risk is going to vary greatly. So without too much ado, let's help you find out once and for all whether you should buy a new bike or a used one. Let's get into it. We're going to start off today's video by talking about buying a brand new motorcycle. For some, this is considered to be the most ill-advised financial decision you can ever make. This sentiment is often disseminated by the same economic old heads that say millennials could afford to buy a real estate if they could just learn to make their own coffee at home, instead of paying some tattooed hipster $8 every day for a frou-frou sissy boy latte. I don't want no frappadapalappuccinos. This is considered to be a bad decision due to the way a new vehicle is immediately devalued once it drives off the lot. This is a lot more of a concern when it comes to cars, where they take an incredibly substantial hit to their value going from new to pre-owned. This depreciation is much less extreme when it comes to motorcycles, which cost just a fraction of the price of a car. Not to mention, have you seen the used prices of vehicles these days? Hell, you could probably buy a brand new motorcycle from the dealership, ride it for a season, turn around and sell it for a profit. Okay, probably not, but it is true that used motorcycle prices are the highest they've ever been, and when you contrast that with new motorcycles being as value-driven as they've ever been, it makes the decision to purchase new or used even more complicated. As a side note to all those economic old heads, if everyone bought a pre-owned vehicle, nobody would buy new vehicles that could become pre-owned. Think about it. Buying a new motorcycle is also criticized by the financially scrupulous because of the amount of fees that are added on by a dealership. For instance, if you're buying a motorcycle with a $10,000 MSRP, on a good day, you're going to be paying about $12,000 out the door. You've got the actual cost of the bike, a $600 freight charge, $600 assembly charge, $300 dock fee, $100 dock fee for your registration and plate, and about $400 for sales tax. But that can vary based on your area. So your $10,000 bike is actually a $12,000 bike. And that is if you're paying cash and buying it outright. And as a side note, I know lots of you out there say, well, I negotiate all that down and I don't pay any of those fees. Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. You can probably negotiate a few of those down, but you're not going to get a $10,000 MSRP bike for 10 G's out the door unless the dealership is really trying to get rid of that motorcycle. Very in-demand motorcycles will probably sell very beyond their MSRP. But if you were to finance that amount with today's interest rates, you'd be paying like $14,000 or $15,000 over the life of the loan, depending on the rate. Which is why if you're financing, making a larger down payment or making extra payments towards the principal can help you save a lot on interest. It is also worth noting that these added fees are far more noticeable on less expensive bikes, because except for the sales tax, all the other fees are going to cost about the same, whether you're buying a $6,000 beginner bike or a $20,000 leader bike. The hard and fast rule, though, that applies to anyone everywhere: don't shop for a bike based on the monthly payment. That's a bad idea. Make your purchase decision on the actual cost of the bike and how much money you have, because the last thing you want is a loan on a bike without enough cash to pay the loan off should you need to or want to. You never want to end up upside down on a loan where you owe more than the damn thing is worth. That's also why gap insurance is a worthwhile investment. When you're purchasing a new bike, a dealership will try to sell you all sorts of bogus additional warranties such as wheel and tire, service, and so on and so forth. More often than not, they're all pretty superfluous except for gap insurance. You can sometimes get gap insurance through your normal insurance provider, or you buy it through the company you're financing with. Gap insurance just ensures that if your bike is deemed a total loss because of theft or an accident, it will pay the difference between what your bike is valued at and what you owe on the loan. Buying a new motorcycle in cash is way less complicated than financing. There are a lot less what ifs to consider, but with that being said, if you're smart with your money, responsible enough to handle a loan, have good credit, and have enough cash on hand to get you out of a jam should you need it, a payment for a motorcycle can be worth it for some. If you have room in your personal budget for a $300 a month payment for a brand new motorcycle that you will ride often, that will bring you happiness and won't require much maintenance beyond scheduled service, I think that's a fair justification. Everyone in America lives on their credit. I don't think that's a good thing necessarily, but I think it's all right to play the game every once in a while if it's going to make you happy. and it fits within your budget, and it fits your goals. Because look, not everything in life's about min-maxing all of the interest rates and tiny little dollars and cents here and there. You gotta live, you gotta enjoy. When buying a new motorcycle, whether you're financing it or buying it outright, you will want full coverage insurance. If you're financing a bike, full coverage is actually a requirement from your loan provider. If you're buying a brand new bike in cash, you don't technically need full coverage. I mean, it's your bike, you own it, you only need to carry state minimum liability insurance, but come on, you just spent thousands and thousands of your hard-earned bucks on a motorcycle, you probably should spend a little bit more to keep it protected. There are so many things that can happen beyond a crash that can end up costing you a ton of money without full coverage. Full coverage on any bike is important because motorcycles get stolen. That is the sad truth. So having full coverage on a new bike, no matter how you paid for it, is kind of a necessity. That being said, it's important to run some numbers and get some quotes for certain bikes before you buy them, because your age, driving record, and even your credit score can impact your insurance rates. And the specific rate to insure a motorcycle can also be seemingly arbitrary at times. Have you seen the outrageous prices people are asking for motorcycles these days? Dealerships and private sellers alike, it is outrageous. If only there was an alternative. If only there was a way you could get a free motorcycle, maybe a Suzuki GSX 8R. Now, how would one go about finding themselves in that situation? Well, it's funny you ask. We're giving one away over on YamiNoob.co. We've given away dozens of motorcycles over the years valued at $500,000. How is this even possible? Through the support of fans just like you. Becoming a member at YamiNoob.co is the best way to support what we do here. Not only will you earn automatic giveaway entries that you can bank up and apply to future giveaways, you'll gain access to our Discord community and exclusive content. Have you ever thought, man, Papa Yam's gotten soft over the years. This channel is just going downhill. Well, by becoming a member, joining the Discord, and signing up for our newsletter, you will gain access to a much unbridled, outrageous, not safe for work, not safe for YouTube YamiNoob version you could ever want. Do you remember 2016 YamiNoob? He's still there. Plus, you could win a practically brand new motorcycle. If you're watching this and you haven't checked out YamiNoob.co yet, I highly implore you to do so. It's one of the coolest parts about running this whole rigmarole, and I'd love for you to see what it's all about. Now let's get back to the show. Insurance companies use a variety of risk factors to calculate the rate for insurance, like the type of bike and brand. Fully fared bikes are almost always significantly more expensive to insure, even when comparing two highly powerful machines. For instance, a Kawasaki ZH2 and an H2, both supercharged 4-cylinder GigaChad motorcycles, will have a significant difference in insurance price, as will an Aprilia 210 V4 versus an RSV4. So, taking into consideration what your insurance is going to cost you will also help you determine whether you should go for a new bike or a used one. And you should 100% shop for insurance quotes before you get your bike. You don't want to be in a situation where you've got your cool bike and then you have to insure it and then you have sticker shock and you think, wow, I can barely afford the insurance on this thing. We've talked about the inherent risks of buying a new bike, so now we must talk about the benefits because there are actually quite a few. For me, as I've gotten older and busier and seem to be buying motorcycles constantly to give away for the channel, have to come to appreciate the convenience of purchasing motorcycles from a dealership. The professionalism, the matter-of-factness of the situation is by and large a huge advantage compared to haggling with the weirdo from Facebook Marketplace. Another benefit of buying a brand new bike is the factory warranty. Yeah, most of the additional warranties that a dealership may try to sell you are pretty bogus, but having a factory warranty from the manufacturer can offer a lot of peace of mind. If you're in the market for a Japanese bike, this may not be as much of a concern, but if you're looking for something European or a little more exotic, where bikes have a stigma for more manufacturing quirks, if we may say, having warranty can ensure that you will be covered. Especially considering how expensive used bikes are nowadays, it can be pretty easy to justify spending a little bit more on a brand new bike with a warranty. Outside of the convenience of a dealership and the luxury of a factory warranty, buying a new motorcycle can also be the only way to get a certain model you really have your eye on. If you want a bike that is new, less common, or has only been in production for a few years, it may damn near be impossible to find a used model in your area if you don't want to be limited to what you can be found in your local used market. When it comes to buying a used motorcycle, there may be less financial risk assessments that needs to be done, but there's still a lot you need to be cognizant of. Yes, you can buy a used motorcycle at a dealership, but then you'll still have to deal with dealership fees and higher asking prices, but without the luxury of a warranty. Because remember, if the dealership bought a bike pre-owned from someone else, they gotta make a margin on it, so it's gonna be way overpriced. And that's something to remember. Just because a used bike is being sold at a dealership doesn't necessarily mean it's been gone over by a fine-tooth comb. A dealership could very well have received the bike on trade, rolled it onto the floor, and then sold it to someone within a few days without ever really inspecting it or going through it. That's not to say there might not be a good deal to be had on a used bike that a dealership is just trying to move, but you just have to do the same due diligence you would do if you were buying from a private seller. When it comes to buying a motorcycle from a private seller, it can be a very lucrative experience, or it can be an absolute nightmare. As the buyer, a lot of the responsibility falls on you. Start with going over listings, ensure there are many good, clear, purposeful photographs. We do a lot of this on our It Came From Facebook videos. Those are a lot of fun because I walk you guys through some listings that are cursed and other listings that look good, but make sure the listing is all the pertinent information, good grammar, a touch of professionalism. If the seller looks like they're making a real effort to sell their bike and they look like a normal human being, they're likely going to be easier to work with and more trustworthy. If a listing has one or two grainy photos and the description is just one run-on sentence in all lowercase letters with no valuable information, just move on. It is not worth your time. Before making an effort to even see the bike in person, you have to ask the seller some pertinent questions. When did they get the bike? Why are they selling? Has it been modified? Has it been dropped? Do they have the title in hand? Extremely important. Is that title in their name? Even more important, do they have maintenance records? If they're weirded out or annoyed by your inquiry, then ghost them. It's not worth your time. A good seller with nothing to hide will make an effort to be as transparent with you as possible in order to get the deal done. When you see the bike in person, reiterate any questions or concerns you may have. Get a read of their general demeanor. If they're relaxed and open to your questions, eager to make chit-chat about different motorcycle-related topics, those are all good signs that everything is on the up and up. If they seem rushed or awkward or impersonal and don't have answers to your questions, that could be indicative of a problem bike that they're just trying to unload as quickly as possible. Make sure the bike is cold before starting it up, let it idle, check the lights or indicators, check the lever feel, check the tires for wear, look around beneath it for any signs of leaks, inspect the chain. If everything else checks out, ask about a test ride. Don't buy the bike if the seller won't let you test ride it. He might ask to hold on to the cash, which is pretty standard. I would do the same thing. But during the test ride, be cognizant of the ride quality, test the brakes, shift up and down through all of the gears. Transmission problems are super expensive on motorcycles if they can't get into gear, and just generally get a feel for if the bike is what you think you'd enjoy riding. Of course, you want to make sure you're not getting ripped off, but you also want to make sure it's the right bike for you. If this will be your first bike, bring an experienced friend to aid in your inspection, inquiry, and test ride. If everything checks out and you got a good feeling about it, make the seller an offer and don't be afraid to negotiate. Everyone will always list a bike for higher than they'll actually take. Buying a used bike will require a transfer of title, which is something that needs to be signed in front of a notary depending on the state you live, and it's going to require you to take care of all the DMV paperwork yourself. If the bike hasn't had updated registration as well, you're going to have to go get it inspected, take that paperwork to the DMV, pay your taxes and all that good stuff. Whether you buy from a dealership or from a private seller, unless you want to be a total degen, you're going to have to pay state taxes and registration fees on the bike. No way of getting around that. So let's summarize. You buy a new bike if you want a new model. You don't want the hassle of a private seller. You want the dealer to take care of all your paperwork. You want a warranty and you're financially responsible enough for a payment, or you have enough cash to plan to minimize interest paid by paying larger amounts towards your principal or paying for the thing outright. Buying a used bike is good if you want to get as good of a price as possible. You're skeptical enough to not get taken advantage of and sold a problem bike, and you can do your own maintenance since used bikes are gonna need a little bit more TLC, and you have enough cash to buy the bike outright. It really is the best idea to buy a used bike as your first because there are a ton of low mileage, relatively new beginner bikes being sold every season as new riders upgrade. The dealer fees on a beginner bike are going to be nearly 50% of the MSRP, and there's no sense in paying nearly $8,000 all in for your first Ninja 400 or 500 or whatever if your risk of an accident are higher and you aren't even sure if you're really going to commit to this thing long term. You can save tons of money if you buy your first motorcycle used, but there are some risks. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. I hope that sheds some light on the motorcycle buying process and will make your decision a little easier. Be sure to check out yammynoob.co if you want more exclusive content and to be entered to win our next giveaway motorcycle. I'll catch you guys later. Fact: the Pope cannot be an organ donor. Goodbye.
Wake up! You're dreaming! You're dreaming! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! None of this is real! None of it's real! None of it's real! Wake up! Keep watching Yammy Noob.